So, hey gang, thanks for tuning in today. I'm here with a good friend of mine, Ryan GoldStein. We go way back, man. You've been in the industry for quite a while now, and we've been talking for quite a while. So, just to give the audience kind of a quick recap, like who are you? Where did you come from?
Sure. So you and I go back, almost 4 years now. I'm in Cleveland, Ohio. I have a Fit Body Boot Camp that's been open for about 3.5 years. I joined forces with you through the seven-figure mastermind before I even had my location. I was doing private training out of my old converted bedroom at about 186 square feet, and was really ready to take a step and wasn't sure how to get there, where there was, or what tools and resources and support I needed. So jumping on board with the seven-figure mastermind and then going into buying my Fit Body location was my first step. And I kind of arrived at the party of now what? And just really trusted the process of having coaches that would really help me time collapse and accelerate my growth with giving me, marching orders and really following a path rather than just turning left and hoping for the best.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what, man? I think you make that sound too easy because I remember, like when I was at HQ and how skeptical really you were to move forward with your location. I'd like to put it in perspective. Like you were literally running your training business out of a bedroom in your dad's condo, right? But that's where you started.
Yeah, 5 years
Yeah,
there.
that was crazy. And then where are you today? Just to give people perspective. So approximately 4.5 years later, where are you now?
So we opened my location about 3.5 years ago in a 2,500 square foot facility. It was half of an available building that I was looking at. And at that point, I remember you telling me this. And of course, hindsight is wonderful. I kept part of that space for private training just because it was, bread and butter that I was used to. And in that first year, we knocked down part of that private training room and then my office, and then we kept growing. So over the last 3.5 years, I've taken over the entire 5,500 square foot rear building where we occupy. We've grown our location immensely. I have 3 full-time people that work for me, 1 part-time, and our EFT by the time we hit, I think about 13, 14 months was at 40K plus per month.
Amazing, amazing, man. And I remember some of the milestones, like the jiu-jitsu guy next door, and taking over that space. And then didn't you have like the folding squat racks or something too? And then you ended up like tearing all of that down, like really within like the first 6 months to a year or something, right?
Yeah, so I knocked down my private training room. We kept the folding squat racks because those can fold right into the wall. Everything else we just left for floor space because obviously, we want no footprint, and we just knocked down and rebuilt, and then it has been insane. I know had I taken it originally, the whole space, I probably would have designed it differently. But again, you don't know. I remember freaking you out with 900 questions, and you're like, dude, just trust the process and trust me on this. I've done this, but I needed to have all my parachutes packed. And I think as I've grown, I've kind of learned to jump and build my parachute on the way down. Just kind of trust you guys. Like you said, is simple, not easy, but
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, man. And honestly, that's why I wanted to talk today. So I've been kind of doing these segments I call clients and colleagues, just reaching out to people I know, whether they've been former clients or people I've worked with in the industry that I just think have like wisdom to share. Because as you know, like this being an entrepreneur thing is not an easy thing. And it's a pretty lonely road and one that usually scares the crap out of you at every single turn. So I think we all benefited from surrounding ourselves with people that did it, that achieved that goal or whatever. And I think that's really what this is about, is just trying to help more people that might be lurking in the shadows that are freaking out, and to try to take that step, because I know they can help more people. So the other day we were chatting, via Messenger, and you sent me this message, and it was really what I wanted to talk about today. You said a strong culture and community is integral, but that comes from the top and starts with the leader. Regardless of how awesome your product or workout is, the relationships and connection you build with those in your facility will ultimately define your success. Tell me about that, man. What do you mean by that, first off?
So, for a while when I first opened, I was freaked out. I'm like, what if no one comes? What if everyone comes? And I was like, okay, good problems to have. Everyone came.
Right.
But what are they coming for? What is the experience you're giving them? What is the relationship that, you have with them? How do they see you? What is your, intention in their perception? And as I started growing and adding people to my team and removing myself from the floor so I could work on versus, in my business. The culture still needed to be strong, and having people on your team that understand where you're going and what the vision is and what their mission is super important, because they could have a high skill level, but if they don't have a high values that align with, with their core values, it's not a good fit. So I was very careful bringing people on and teaching them that, like, this was people first, people always. And
Sure.
what does that mean to them? What does that mean to us? And how do we function as a team so we have a united front of, hey, this is how we greet people. This is what they should expect, and should be not just a good day, it's gonna be a great day. And
Right.
on a repeated, consistent basis. You know what I mean?
So you know me, man, like I'm such a process driven guy. And I think like the thing that always drove me bananas is like sitting and listening to people and not feeling like I really could walk away and know how to apply that. So you said there that like you're really careful bringing people on. Can you talk about that? Like, what are the steps that you go through to qualify and recruit new team members, or how would you teach somebody new in the industry to do it?
Sure. So I remember, talking to you in the beginning, and two of my hires were from within. One of which is now my, pretty much director of operations and second in command. She actually began as a member who had, certifications and, just loved training, but was actually working for the county child protective services. So her background's social work and, problem solving and, organization, which is great. And I kept teasing her. I'm like, hey, if you ever want to leave that dumb job,
Right.
come on. So she started training part-time, but literally I brought her on full-time after 6 months of being open, and getting a vibe for who she was. Is she someone that I want to come in and actually hang out and talk to? I don't want to walk into my facility and be like, oh, crap, so-and-so is working. Like, that doesn't have a good vibe. And the members see that. So they think I'm at odds with my team, that oh my God, something's wrong. They're fighting, they're close. Like, it just, perception, right?
Right.
So I brought her on, and it was just a really good culture fit. She was very detail oriented. We'd grab lunch, we'd have coffee, we'd work mobily. And I think the big thing was figuring out what drives her, and understanding like their love language and how to relate to my team, not just her, but in general, because, hey, she appreciates time off with her family. She appreciates, that type of, language. One of my other person is very driven, is a growth opportunity, and wants to learn and be, educate. So I've taken them to coaching groups with me and other things. The other one appreciates money and finance. So how do we compensate, and stuff like that. But the skill level is one thing. If I can't see how they relate to people, do they not show well? I'll give a great example. My most recent hire is freaking like rock star, culture wise and training wise, which is huge. But he came from one-on-one groups, was a little different. So how do you engage? And he literally came in and sat with me for like 2 hours, and he had, his bag, he was all put together. He's like, here's my training, here's my clients. I was like, let's put that aside. Like, tell me, what was the last book you read? Or the, 5 songs that motivate you. Walk me through an average day. And we just peopled, like we just sat and talked. And then he came and I said, hey, take a session, and then stay and just shadow. He's like, okay, cool. Then what? I'm like, come back again tomorrow morning and shadow. He's like, okay, cool. He did it for 5 days to prove to me and for us to see how he works. How does he interact? The coolest thing, and I remember this was a defining moment for me culturally. I had come in and it was between sessions, and he was just stretching and just like doing some foam rolling. And I was talking to him, and behind me, our front doors opened and someone walked in. He just looked at me, walked straight past me, and says, hey, I'm Adam. Nice to meet you. What's your name? He introduced himself.
Before you heard it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Amazing.
He just stopped talking to me because people first, and immediately introduced himself, welcomed them to the facility. He didn't even freaking work there.
Right.
Yet. And I was like, sold.
That's awesome. So lots of, just starting a couple minutes ago,
yeah,
you wrote a book reference without even meaning to maybe necessarily have a book reference. It was just like part of your common language. And
yeah.
I'm sure probably everybody knows that book, but if you didn't catch it, the 5 love languages, a really awesome book for understanding people. And you really kind of like, you reinforced the importance of that to you in how you're defining those characteristics with people. And it's such a key thing that I think you touched on, is to first understand what they value. So in an effort of communication and showing appreciation and reciprocity really between people, it's like understanding how to do that in the way that they value. And I think that's man, in many offices and work cultures today, that's just something that is foreign and absent entirely. So cool, very cool. I also think it's one of the cool things about the fitness industry, you know, because I think we're far more we're an empathetic group, right? So it's like I think we're far more in touch with that stuff as a general rule, but maybe not from the management side of things. Love what you said about recruitment and the peopling, you know, and just getting to know people on that deeper level. That's really awesome.
For sure.
What else can you tell me, man? Like, how has this? So we've kind of covered that recruitment side of things, or how you begin to qualify and find new hires. You know, how do you keep that going? And what did you mean about how that will ultimately define your success?
Sure. So, you know, over the last couple of years of, you know, what gets someone in the door is one thing, but how do you keep them? You know, how do you build that relationship and retention? And it's really about knowing people's names when they walk in the front door. Like if you have a relationship, you know when someone's having an off day, or, hey, what's going on? I noticed, you know, such and such. And yeah, we're stressed out because we're building a new house, or, you know, we just have lost, you know, a death in the family. Like, we're the first people to get a card out to them for a birthday, for a condolence, anything like that. Like, that is the stuff that keeps people around, because they feel seen. And I think the two basic human needs are to be, you know, recognized and understood and valued, right?
Yes.
So teaching my team, and from, you know, how we not just coach on the floor, but when someone walks in, hey, they get a greeting within, 3 to 4 seconds. And during session, yeah, everyone hears their name, or there's a touch point or a correction or just an acknowledgement. Great job. But how do we set milestones with them? How do we recognize that? And in building that out with our programming, and how do I get my team engagement? By feeding them, right? So we have done, corrective exercise workshops for coaching and training, but how do you get their personal growth, and like not just professionally, but their buy-in? I recently took one of my coaches to a training with the, Fit Body Elite Coaching, and for him to really understand the impact that they make and how to set them on fire and how to get better results and build relationships. And he came back 2 weeks ago, like, I have to put a leash on him. Like, he's going to run through the walls.
Was that Justin's workshop? Is that the elite coaching one?
No, it wasn't the Rockstar thing. It was the Fit Body Elite.
Okay, cool.
Really trying to get, streamlined for people to have the awesome experience to really break down what that looks like on day to day, but on a retention and global basis.
Right. So
he's like, I totally get it, because a lot of stuff that I've said to him, he had heard before, but he heard from other voices. So it's like I was telling the dad voice telling you versus, hey, a colleague or an outside authority that's not me or your boss.
Right.
So for him, he sees growth. He sees growth and opportunity in where my business is going, where Fit Body as a whole is going, how he can elevate his role to create more impact, and also impact, his income and, influence. Right. One of my other coaches, we've done the whole, NASM workshops together. We've done some work with Craig Ballantyne and how to manage and have less stress and manage their day and plan so they can be healthier and better outside of work, so they don't bring outside stress into work.
Right.
Right.
So I think 3 really key things there to talk about, Ryan. So first off, you talked about being the first one to send condolence cards and things like that to your clients, which is amazing. Like that's like such a kind and amazing community. And I think it would be easy for anyone to see the impact that it has. But I think a lot of people probably get hung up in, how do you manage the logistics of that? How do you do that time and time again efficiently? So can you talk about how that works in your business? Like, what's the process, and how did you implement that?
So like the day-to-day minutia is, one of those things, like, it was easy to do when you're just starting. So there's like 30, 40, 50, like, no big deal. I got this. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, you need to get another person. Hey, you need to replace yourself. I was like, why? Now I get it. Right. So going through the day-to-day process, especially whether it's bringing on a trial member or just maintaining relationships with current members, we have a few things in place for that. So at least with our trial people, there's a process that once they sign up and they, do a strategy session with me, they get a handwritten thank you card from my director of operations. Every person that comes through gets that. Follow-ups with the text messages, and not just like automating it, but automating a task, and an actual human will reach out, because the inefficiencies is what makes it personal.
True.
So going through with our, CRM, whether you're using, Zen Planner, Club Ready, Mind Body, whatever it is, we have a report of everyone's birthdays. So a month ahead of time, my director of operations schedules out Facebook posts in our inner circle to shout out birthdays for everybody. We'll handwrite cards a month ahead of time so they're ready to go. And we'll also, obviously, they're on the front line. So if your coaches aren't talking to people, or they don't know someone's birthday's coming up, or someone's going on vacation, or they're not comfortable having those conversations, how do they have the conversations of asking people to refer, right? Because it sounds weird, like, hey, you don't really talk to me, but then you want me to refer somebody. So when they tell me, hey, so-and-so's having surgery, or their mom is in the hospital, mental note, parking lot that, and then at the end of the morning of a daily debrief or text to operations, hey, so-and-so had a parent die, check on them, their kid is in the hospital, follow up with this, right? So if you just build it into the day-to-day factors, like every Monday, Crown will do cards out for the next week or the next whatever, right? So if you set that task list of expectations and roles, this is what we hire you for on the floor. This is what we need behind the scenes of checking in and loving and, hugs and snuggles, right?
Yeah. Yeah, man. So what you said there, I think is extremely powerful, right? So for people watching this video, like I know I've spoke to so many entrepreneurs that are like, how can I find the time for this? How can I afford to do all this?
Yeah.
But it's like, it really doesn't need to be perfect.
You can't afford not to.
Well, exactly, right. And just start today, even if it's just like one card this week, and then focus on 2 cards next week, because it'd be easy to see how that type of contact is not only going to like be so meaningful to those people and something that they will carry with them, which is really what we're in the business of, right? Making people the best versions of themselves, which starts inside and then goes outside. But it's like in the prospect of how that will help us in building our business through referral. Yes. It's a no-brainer how quickly that will pay for itself and beyond. Like if you want to reduce your marketing budget, focus on that. The other thing,
investing in your people is what it is. It's investing in your people.
Yeah.
You made a comment that they couldn't, I can't afford that. I'm like, you can't afford not to right now. If you have to dig a hole for a little bit, do it, because that experience is everything. You'll make it back on the end.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. The second thing that stood out to me is you talked about making sure that your team is up on milestones and things like that. And I think as trainers, we all know the importance of this, but this is something that I see like so many fitness professionals fail miserably at, right? Especially when you get into the group training world, and now it's like a lot of clients, so it's like, how does you and your team, how do you handle that? If you don't mind talking about that, like what advice would you give to a new entrepreneur in getting better at setting, recognizing, and enforcing milestones with your team, and specifically with clients?
So with recognizing it, having my team recognizing it, having us do something for it, we're still getting better at that. Like for a while it was, obviously easier with less people. Right now we have some stuff going on regularly, so we can have people excited about coming in. Yep. So this month we're doing, X amount of workouts in the 26 available days in June, and they're tracking. We have like 150 people on the board. They're just tracking their stuff. We don't have to do it. Like they come in, they check it off, and then at the end at the end of the month, we put them into a raffle for, some swag or prizes or supplements or whatever. But hey, first workout, text message right after. Hey, I saw that you did your first full push-up or, burpee, whatever. Like those are the things that coaches will recognize. Every day my coaches go into our circle and shout out 3 or 4 people from the day just for catching them doing something cool. Or way to work, or hey, nice first time this. When you hit your weight loss, goal or just a milestone, like we're doing small trophies or light up stuff or sending things out. Really trying to bump that up. Like someone the other day just knocked on my door, was like, hey, I don't want to bother you. I was like, is everything okay? And she's like, I hit 40 pounds. I'm like, scream that shit. Scream that shit.
Yeah.
Sorry. But hey, and then I immediately was like, hey, Crown, send out a thing. We're gonna do a shout out, whatever. We have, what's your why board, or hey, this summer we just did a, what are your 3 summer goals? Focuses on actions and processes versus just weight loss, right?
Right.
Not everyone's there for weight loss, but hey, can you get here 3 to 4 days a week? That's 4 days more than you've done in the last 3 years, non-scale victories.
Right.
So that tracking is huge. We're still getting better at it, but we're giving them an environment to have fun with. We're going to set up for next month a bingo card and like a citywide scavenger photo hunt thing to start posting.
Yeah. So I think what you said there is brilliant. And those were really, really good examples that everybody can take good takeaways from. Human nature is such is that we are all selfishly motivated. So if you give people a reason to be selfishly involved, like the workout tracking, like we were all conditioned in kindergarten to get a gold star on the board. So it's like, if you can replicate that process that's kind of deep ingrained since we were children, right? And
Yep.
make people like selfishly motivated to track, manage, and do it themselves. That's how you win with a large group of clients to take care of. So
It's
brilliant
visible.
stuff that I think people can take away and apply. I had another question, but I totally forgot now. So anything else you'd like to talk about? Like if you were starting over, what are the things that you wish you knew then that you knew now in this regard, or what advice would you give somebody brand new to the industry?
I think having some set, processes or, I'd say, systems, but the systems and processes go in order. If you can build it and make it scalable, so no matter if you have 5 people or, 500 people, that process is the same. And like getting the onboarding process is huge, because recognizing that if someone walks in your facility and they're doing a 6-week trial or, an LBO, 21 days, whatever, if they're not showing up 3 times in that first week, you're not getting them. So if you need to know, not if they're there, but more importantly, if your people are not there. So reach out to after the first workout. Hey, I haven't seen you, or hey, high five, so-and-so, whatever. Great. What's that onboarding look like continuously? So setting alerts, having messages, and having, a process that you go through is huge. So we just started doing a huge board of everybody that comes in and starts a trial from like week 1 to week 2 with cards, their name, the trial they're on, their start, their end date, and then the 7-day warning. When do we send out, hey, your expiration is coming up, email to move forward. And then we just keep moving them through the week to week to week on the giant board. That has helped us with a visual, so we know where people are rather than running reports. That's how my director works very, very well.
Yes.
I would have, your coach on, your people on the floor, that's your product. Like that is your number one thing. So getting your people engaged, knowing what's happening at any point, how do they run the room? How do they say hi? Can they hear them? Do people relate? There's like 9,000 things looking back that I would have done differently, but I wouldn't have had the struggle to get to where I am to understand why they're so freaking important.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I think that's, that I think is such a big thing that I think that's a good place for us to end off, because I think if you're still watching this video and you're in, the thing that I'd like you to take away, because I certainly know this is how it was in my business, is that when you start to hire people and when you start to try to scale, it's like you did things naturally that other people just don't do. So I know my own businesses, and tell me if I'm wrong, if it was kind of like this for you, but it's like when you first start hiring people, you don't think about all those onboarding things. You don't think about all the little things that you did when you got a new client naturally that brought you more clients, and the reviews and the testimonials and the referrals.
Yeah.
But you don't even think you need to pass that on to people at first.
It's second nature to us, but you'd think like, hey, this is how I think, so everyone will get that. And I'm like, hey, did you follow up? They're like, oh, huh? Or, hey, what was the last time you saw so-and-so? Oh yeah. Like, so make it, part of doing business with you. Like you would tell your members, this is part of how we do business with your team. This is how we work.
Yeah.
So they're not going to care as much as I do. No one's going to care as much as you do.
Sure.
If I can get someone that's like 70% of me, and I know that, I'm going to run through a wall, they'll get there.
That's right. Yeah, no, that's exactly it. So guys, great place for us to wrap up today. This is exactly how relationships will ultimately define and determine the ultimate level of success that you'll reach. And you don't even realize it, but it's what you did naturally. It was the thing that got you into business or made this a viable career opportunity in the first place, is that you naturally cared bigger. You reached out to people more often, you had better relationships, you knew the outside of the workout details that allowed them to know, trust, and like you well enough to actually be compliant and commit and make some changes in their life. So probably from all of us, that's one of the biggest things that we struggle with when we go to a business of our own is you don't think that you need to pass those things on, because you're right. You just assume that people will think like you do. So if you took one thing away from this video, it would be, when you begin to hire people, really start scripting the process of what it's like when a new client enters your service and they're servicing that client. What are the milestones, checklists, highlights, bullet points, whatever it is, for them to replicate as much of how you would handle that new client as possible, and take your time to get it right. Awesome, man. What a great call this has been today. Thanks so much for doing this. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you, and so much tremendous value here for sure.
It is my sincere pleasure. I appreciate everything that you've poured into coaching and being available and listening to all my insanity at any point in the journey. But no, I love giving back, and I'm happy to answer questions or talk to anyone that needs it. So I learned from you guys too. So thank you.
Cool. Yeah, we're just people that care about people, for sure.